Coming up next on Making Moves, the Dames Point Bridge reaches a major milestone. How this local icon escaped its nickname, the Bridge to Nowhere. What two JTA bus operators found on their route early one morning and how their efforts helped save a life.
Now I thought I just got to do something. I can't just stand here and watch him run over the car.
And some local musicians are heading to the Big Apple to perform in an international music festival. How JTA helped them get there and where they'll be performing. I'm Terry Casey. Making Moves starts right now. Hello, and thanks for joining us today on Making Moves. I'm Terry Casey. We begin with what once was called the Bridge to Nowhere, and now 66,000 vehicles a day use it. Of course, we're talking about the Dames Point Bridge. Making Moves' Eugene Lindsay joins us now. Eugene, the once maligned icon is now 25 years old, and you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody who still thinks it deserves that Bridge to Nowhere moniker.
Well, Terry, you would be absolutely right about that. In fact, the Dames Point Bridge has proven itself to be both a transportation lifeline and an economic engine. A waste of taxpayer money? Bridge to Nowhere? Those are just a couple of the nicknames the Dames Point Bridge was called 25 years ago. Well, you don't hear much of that anymore. The majestic Dames Point long ago became an engineering icon, but more importantly, it became accepted as the important transportation link that it is. For the past 25 years, Dames Point has saved commuters not only miles on their trips, but time in their lives.
It's a big convenience. Less traffic, faster commute.
That's like hours I have to go around and then come back, and then it's like 15 minutes I could just cross, 10 to 15 minutes. It's right there for me.
Everybody can get around faster from the south side to north side.
Yes, I go to Nassau Sound. I go to the zoo. I can go this way, go to the zoo. Yes, it's a very convenient way to travel for me.
The building of the Dames Point Bridge forever changed much more than just traffic patterns. It changed lives.
We had no shopping. The only place to go and eat, for goodness sakes, was Dunn Avenue, and that was the Dairy Queen. So.
For Joseph Johnson and his family, the progress of the new bridge was somewhat bittersweet. Johnson still recalls his feelings of watching as the world he knew as a child was uprooted in the name of future development.
Most of my relatives stayed in this neighborhood. They're dead and gone now. That bridge is in close proximity to their homes, and they all had to move.
But like the thousands of us who use the Dames Point Bridge daily, Johnson is well aware of the value of his family's sacrifice.
Cuts down on transportation time from what it used to be when we had to go all the way around. To get to the south side was much quicker now.
Prior to the Dames Point Bridge, this is how much of the north side looked. Rather rural with horses and farmland and not a whole lot of amenities. But over the past 25 years, this area has seen tremendous growth. New housing, restaurants, and shopping malls. It's become a whole new world north of the Dames Point Bridge. Bonnie Seeker knows all about growth here. When she started her real estate office 2 years before the Dames Point Bridge opened, the average sale price of a new home in North Jacksonville was in the $30,000 range. Now, it's more than 4 times that.
If we didn't have the bridge, we probably wouldn't be much further than we were before. I mean, because the new subdivisions, again, in order to bring people, you have to have a place for them to live. Okay, the builders were afraid to spend money out here because if you can't get people to buy those homes, it's not going to work, is it?
And the growth here is not slowing down at all. New housing developments continue to go up, and now the north side is one of the fastest growing commercial sectors in town as well, with developments like the River City Marketplace providing shops and restaurants residents here once had to travel miles to enjoy.
So we've come a long way.
In North Jacksonville, Eugene Lindsay, JTA, Making Moves.
Now let's take a look at the Dames Point Bridge by the numbers. Construction began in 1985 and was finished in 1989. The main span is 1,300 feet long and 175 feet high. And when it opened, it was the largest cable-stayed bridge in the United States with more than 21 miles of cable. Joining us now, the man who was responsible for getting that bridge built 25 years ago, Mr. Larry Weiner. Larry was the construction project manager on the Dames Point Bridge project. I want to welcome you back to Making Moves and let everybody know we're not talking about the Main Street Bridge behind us, but the Dames Point Bridge. Being in that position and the responsibility of getting that bridge built must have been one of those once-in-a-lifetime things. How did it all unfold for you?
Well, it definitely was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and about that time in my life, I'd been working on major construction projects, possibly moving around the country, and my boys were 7, 9, 11 years old, and I just didn't want to be moving around, and saw the opportunity come down here, an interview for the job, and got the position, and I stayed in Jacksonville, a very good place to raise the family, and
it is.
Kept it around here, and Dame Point was just obviously the frosting on the cake.
Lots of challenges, I would imagine, also in building that bridge.
It was quite a bit. I remember in 1984, reading an engineering magazine, first time I saw the rendering of the bridge and they talked about it being bid, and I looked at it and I said, man, that's a neat bridge. And little did I know that the following June, I interviewed for the job, and, accepted the job for it to come on down here and do that. But it was a great opportunity with that. But as far as challenges, it's a big bridge, one of a kind, and first time on some things. There are several things we did out on the job. You're going through it the first time. Like the very first concrete pour we had was the largest pour ever in the state of Florida. And then a week later, we doubled that in the pour. These are the big pours out on the river. And the week after that, we poured nearly 18,000 yards of concrete, and that was emptied in one of these concrete trucks every minute and 33 seconds underwater. And I heard at that time was the largest pour in the world, in the Tremie pour, and as far as I know, it still is. But
what about those cables?
The cables themselves, there's 288 cables. They run right down to the bridge, and they're actually a steel pipe, 8-inch diameter steel pipe, and they have 7 high-strength 1.25-inch bars inside them. And then once everything was up and adjusted, then it was grout filled with cement.
Another challenge might have been that bridge to nowhere nickname. Why do you think there was so much public sentiment against the bridge being built?
Well, first of all, when they say bridge nowhere, I have to say which one, because every bridge they built has been a bridge to nowhere.
All right, the Dames Point Bridge, your baby.
But that one in particular, and I don't know why people don't have the foresight. They start talking about the Dame Point Bridge back in the Kennedy administration, and I came down here in 1985 to start construction on it. And they had projections of 20,000 cars a day. People were saying, would never be, didn't go any place or whatever else with it. Well, there were 20,000 cars a day the first day they did it, and I think it's over 70,000 cars a day now. So it's, I think it's, if it hasn't surpassed, it's getting ready to surpass the Matthews Bridge in volume.
And you mentioned the traffic on that bridge now, which really, I mean, it's one of the iconic landmarks in all of Northeast Florida. How does that make you feel?
Well, it's a beautiful bridge, and there's a lot of bridges, but you get the big bridges, Dame Point, it's a cable-stayed bridge. It doesn't match the iconic, like the Golden Gate Bridge and things like that. But it's a very beautiful bridge, especially when the sun's shining on. I drove up over it yesterday, bringing one of the fellows back to the airport, and just looking at that bridge, it just, it's something, and that you're a part of it.
What do you feel when you drive over it? I mean, is there any way to put it into words?
Well, there's a lot of pride with it, and the fact you had, part to do with it. And I guess the biggest thing now is I talk about some of the parts I had with it, and people look at me, yeah, sure you did. But, so that's it. But it was quite an honor.
Now, I understand, and this is really, I think, sort of cool, that every year you and key members of your team have this meeting. It's not really a meeting, it's sort of a picnic.
Exactly.
Why?
Well, and actually the anniversary was yesterday. I had a picnic under the bridge with 25 of my closest friends. It started about 15 years or so ago. The project engineer And I would take Mr. Lanahan, who was chairman of the board, and really the guy that pushed and got this bridge built. He took a lot of flack for doing it, but it got done. And we'd go out to lunch, and then we tied in a couple other fellows that were DOT state secretaries at the time that helped Mr. Lanahan get that done. We'd go out to lunch, and one of those fellows was there yesterday. And we did that until Mr. Lanahan died in 1984. And then I just started doing a picnic with some of the construction guys, and then extended to some of the design folks, and then a few fellows that I've worked with the last several years in construction. I call them Dane Point wannabes that really like the bridge and that. So we've got a good group under there. But we had 25 yesterday, perfect weather for it. I actually had one of the fellows come down from Maryland, come on down for the picnic. We hadn't seen him in 25 years, so that was quite a fun event.
Well, I'll tell you what, hats off certainly to you and your vision and your execution of the vision, as well as all of your team members. Mr. Larry Weiner, thank you so much for a structure of such magnificence and economic impact that has benefited this city and the entire region.
And my thanks are to the JTA for bringing me down here, and then have the opportunity to work with that and bring my family down here. It's been a great place to be, and a real honor to be part of that bridge.
Well, thank you for taking the time to join us here on Making Moves.
Thanks for having me.
Mr. Larry Weiner. Well, JTA continues its commitment to have open dialogue with the community through its community advisory groups. At a recent meeting of the Greater Arlington and Beaches CAG, members presented a number of issues before JTA officials concerning improvements to the Regency Square Mall hub and even questions about transporting special needs passengers. The open exchange of ideas and concerns between the public and JTA helps the authority work on solutions to problem areas and advise residents on future transportation projects. The CAG meetings have allowed citizens to expand the level of public participation in shaping projects either online now or that have been designed for later use.
I really didn't know what to expect when I went to the first meeting, and being part of the meeting was really good for me because I got to express some ideas and things, even just bouncing off some of the things that were mentioned at the meeting from other attendees to the meeting.
I live right across the street from here, so I can walk to the mall. That's why I'm able to catch that AR6. The CT4 runs till 1 in the morning. So far, that is my favorite route for that reason alone. And when we were talking about buses running later, I would love to see something like that implemented for other routes as well.
JTA has 6 community advisory groups in Duval County and 1 in Clay County.
When we got to the tracks, we had seen a car on the tracks.
Still to come, a terrifying experience for 2 JTA bus operators when they find a car on railroad tracks with somebody inside. We'll tell you what happened next in this pre-dawn nightmare.
When we walk together, we are bigger than cancer. Join the American Cancer Society Relay for Life and let's finish the fight. Sign up at relayforlife.org.
One Spark was built to take somebody that's got a great idea and connect them to resources, whether that's capital, like financially, or human capital.
Create an environment where people feel like they can create something and that they have the right support to do so.
The Kona School is a 6th through 12th grade blended project-based learning environment.
The APOD is a solar-powered, sustainable aquaponics facility built inside an insulated 20-foot container.
Internationally, we're fighting the sex trade by partnering with like 9 other companies from around the world that give women freedom through business.
We've taken these 2 groups and put them together to step out of their box and write one song together.
It's always about time. Everyone's pushing forward, which is what you got to do with any idea if you want it to happen.
Finding a job is great. Finding a career, even better. The JTA is currently hiring part-time bus operators. These jobs offer a great opportunity for full-time advancement. If you're at least 23 years old, have a high school diploma or equivalency, a commercial driver's license, and a clean driving record, then we want to hear from you. All qualified candidates receive additional paid training. To start on your path to future success with the JTA, visit us online at jtafla.com and learn more about this and all our open positions.
Imagine taking a gondola ride through the canals in Venice, experiencing the breathtaking magnificence of the Eiffel Tower, or riding a legendary double-decker bus through the streets of London. For most of us, these are just dreams that will never come true, but they could. Think about saving hundreds, even thousands of dollars a year by doing one simple thing: parking your car and taking JTA instead. Save money, ride JTA, and make your dreams a reality.
Welcome back to Making Moves. Driving a JTA bus may appear routine, but most, if not all, the drivers will tell you it's anything but routine, especially if you throw in the unexpected. The story you are about to see happened a while ago on some downtown railroad tracks near Baptist Hospital. It involves a train, a car, and two JTA bus drivers caught up in a terrifying scenario in the early morning darkness. Susan Pieri has 9 years' experience driving for the JTA.
I mean, you got good things that happen and bad. You learn a lot, about life being on these buses, I think.
She thought she'd seen it all, until the morning her route took Susan and one passenger to a stop at the railroad tracks near Baptist Hospital.
We approached the bus stop right there by the railroad tracks, which he usually gets off at, and when we got to the tracks, we had seen a car on the tracks, thinking, oh my God, there was a car on the tracks. Like, that would be something you wouldn't see, that early in the morning. But what was weird is we saw that there was somebody in there moving, so there was a woman in there.
Susan left the bus and ran to the car, screaming at the driver to get out because potential danger was suddenly very real and bearing down on them all.
Just kept yelling, get out of the car, because within just seconds from that we saw the train approaching. We didn't know, with the train coming, if it was going to hit her. So it was kind of scary, and then we got her to come over to us, and she got out of the car. But the train was still coming.
Buddy Duthard is a 24-year veteran. He started his bus route that morning at the Rosa Parks station with a half-dozen passengers and wound up at the same spot. He saw Susan and her bus at the side of the road, then the car on the tracks. He pulled over to help.
There was really nothing we could do, She had the passengers out, but the car was still on the tracks and the train was coming.
Buddy heard the train coming and he took off. He ran down the tracks in the direction that I'm walking, headed straight for an oncoming train.
Now I thought, I just got to do something. I can't just stand here and watch him run over the car. So I got to do something. I got to try. I did just try. I ran down the tracks as far as I could to try and give him some stopping room. And I didn't have a flashlight with me, so all I could think of was my cell phone. So I held my cell phone up and waved it at him. He came at me, he wasn't stopping, and I figured he wasn't going to see me. But right when he got right up on me, he looked down and saw me, and I could hear him putting his brake. He reached down and put his brakes on right as he saw, right as he got right to me. And it took him a while to come to a stop, and it came to a stop just right before he got to the car.
It was like our bus schedule was perfect for that lady at that time. You know what I'm saying? If we wouldn't have been there, because it was so early in the morning, there was no cars. We were the only one out on the road here. So it wasn't for us pulling up to the times we did.
We're usually the only people out there, so we have to watch out for each other.
Susan Pieri rescued the driver stranded on the tracks and got the 26-year-old woman safely away from the car and off the tracks. The driver wasn't hurt, fortunately. Later, however, she was charged with multiple offenses, including driving under the influence and careless driving. As for Buddy Duthard, after bravely flagging down the train, he returned to his route and delivered all of his passengers to their final destinations on time. All in a day's work when you're a JTA bus operator. Well, it turns out that JTA employees have a huge heart and are quite the charitable group. The company recently formed an internal committee focused on giving back to the community, and give they have. JTA employees reached deeply into their wallets for the recent United Way and Community Health Charities campaigns, contributing more than $53,000 for the two groups, and that's 3 times the JTA contribution from the previous year. Employees have also taken part in recent charitable walks for the American Heart Association and the American Cancer Society, with more charitable events planned in the near future. Some local students recently spent a holiday from school getting a personal lesson on transportation from JTA. It was all part of a partnership between JTA and COMTO, that stands for Conference of Minority Transportation Officials. 29 students from the Bridge of Northeast Florida were welcomed aboard a special JTA trolley and then the Skyway for a behind-the-scenes tour of the agency. And that included a look at everything, including how the Skyway is controlled, to how JTA maintains its fleet of buses, to the administration and marketing of the Transportation Authority. It was an eye-opening experience for most of these young people.
It was very informative, and not only was it informative, it was also interesting for the youth, so I really did appreciate it.
With buses and other kind of modes of transportation, it's a whole lot easier for many different types of people to get around versus everyone cramped in a car and on I-95 where we can just get on one bus, transport 50, 60 people at one time.
A lot of them think transportation is just driving a bus, and we want to open them up to different opportunities for their careers, to know that, we have engineers that work for us, we have accountants, we have attorneys, we have just a vast variety of employees that work for the JTA.
JTA CEO and Executive Director Nat Ford took time to talk to these students about the endless career possibilities in transportation. And up next, some local musicians head to the Big Apple to showcase their talents with some help from JTA. More on that story when we come back.
I just had to come back one last time. You leave home, you move on, and you do the best you can. I got lost in this old world and forgot who I am.
Finally, we had a weekend away, and we couldn't wait to see what Jacksonville had in store. We jumped into a cab and cruised downtown. They had a huge jazz fest, and everyone was dancing in the streets. We went to this Riverside Arts Market. There were all these farmers with local fruits and vegetables, and just amazing. We had a private wine tasting, and then we were off to this beer fest, where the locals just took us in and made us feel like one of them. The Skyway was a pretty cool way to see the city. We escaped on a water taxi with views that were just spectacular. Then we plunged back into the city for the game of a lifetime. Thing is, we didn't get away from anything. We got away to everything. Have your biggest weekend ever. Visit Jacksonville.
That was awesome.
Welcome back to Making Moves. Some musicians from the Douglas Anderson School of the Arts are heading to New York to perform at the famed Carnegie Hall, thanks in part to the generosity of JTA employees.
So this was just one way that our employees had an opportunity to support some young people who are doing the right thing. They're high school students who are so good at what they do in terms of playing instruments in their high school band that they're being invited to go to Carnegie Hall. How could we not support a group of young people like that? We also had a lot of employees who were former marching band members, and played instruments, and their kids were band kids, so they felt really close to the Douglas Anderson students and wanted to show their full support.
CEO Nat Ford met with the musicians and presented them with a $500 check from JTA employees to help pay for the trip. Douglas Anderson will join 5 other youth ensembles from around the globe to perform at the 8th Annual New York International Music Festival. Before heading off to New York for the concert of a lifetime, several of the band members stopped by JTA to perform as a thank you to the employees for helping to make their trip possible. And you know what? That wraps up this edition of Making Moves. Thank you again for taking time to join us. Now, I want you to remember that you can always catch complete episodes of Making Moves online at jtafla.com and on our YouTube channel, JTA 904. You can also find exclusive web-only content on our Facebook page. So be sure to check that out at facebook.com/JTA Making Moves. For the entire Making Moves team now, I'm Terry Casey, and we leave you with some more great music from the Douglas Anderson Band. See you next time on Making Moves.